Hi, eBay sellers. It's Suzanne. And in this video, I'm going to address the dreaded question of how can I prevent clothing returns? You all watch my sales update videos, and I really don't get that many clothing returns as a percentage of the amount I sell. And I truly believe it's because I do everything I can on the front end to prevent those returns. So I want you to think about a few things if you are already a clothing seller who is seeing too many returns, or if that is keeping you from selling clothing because you are afraid everything's going to be returned because it doesn't fit or for whatever reason. So let me start off by saying that most buyers who go online to purchase anything don't want to return it. That is not their objective when they purchase something. They want it to be right. They want to keep it. They want to love it. They want to use it. So while that can be a thorn in our side as a seller, the dreaded, oh, a return, keep in mind that is not the buyer's intention. They want to keep what they buy. So put that thought to rest that buyers are out to get you. They're doing this on purpose. And I'm not referring to the problem with INADs, item not as described, where buyers have figured out they can choose that reason for a free return. That's a different animal that we really cannot tackle because that issue is out of our hands. eBay is allowing that to happen. So you can do everything right on the front end and still get a return. And that's just the nature of the business. If you look at brick and mortar retailers, they have to deal with returns all the time for all kinds of reasons. So it's just part of the business and something that you have to get comfortable with. It's going to happen, and you can always resell the item again. So this video is going to give you 8 ways to prevent clothing returns. Things you can do ahead of time or as you are creating your listing that can help you cut down on returns if you are seeing a lot of them. Okay, the first reason is, are you selling items that by their nature are frequently returned? When you get returns, is the same reason being checked? Are the same types of items being returned? Maybe the same brands of items. So look at your returns and see if you can identify any similarities in the returns, brand, type of item, men's versus women's, material, anything like that, where you could draw a conclusion that maybe you just shouldn't sell that type of item because it's always getting returned. The second reason is provide measurements. I see a lot of resistance to this. People think it takes too long. I don't want to do that. I'm in a hurry to list 10 items tonight after my full-time job. And let's just look at that from the buyer's perspective. There are several reasons why buyers like measurements on their items. First of all, they're going to compare it to something they have that fits well. That's how it's done on eBay. When you give them a bust measurement, a chest measurement, they're going to compare it to something they already own that fits well and see how that compares. Buyers may not take the time to ask you for the measurements. I have done thousands of one-on-one coaching calls and consultations over the last 10 years. And when I critique the listings, the seller will say, well, if they want the measurements, they can just ask me. You have no idea how many buyers are skipping over your listings because the measurements are not there. eBay is notorious for sellers who don't answer or answer very slowly. So that buyer may need that item immediately. A lot of people wait till the last minute to shop for clothing that they need for an event or whatever the reason is. And they're in a hurry. They don't want to wait for you to answer. So if that is your mindset, oh, I'll take good care of them if they ask me a question, you have no idea how many people are just skipping over your listing and moving on to someone that does have the measurements because they don't want to wait for an answer. And while your intentions may be good, you might be out to dinner, at a party, at your kid's soccer practice, and you cannot pull that item out and measure it and tell them the measurements as quickly as you might like to, or as quickly as you would intend to, because you're not with your inventory. It may be 3 or 4 hours before you can get them an answer, and that buyer has already moved on to somebody else and bought it from a different person. So you want to spoon feed your buyer this information up front so they don't have to wait for an answer. People are in a hurry all the time, and that's just the world we live in. Also, remember that buyers cannot try on clothing if they're buying it online. They don't know if it's going to fit. And if you have the measurements, they can make a better educated guess about if it's going to fit. And I speak from personal experience. When I find something in a retail store that I like that fits well, I buy like 3 or 4 colors of it because I hate clothes shopping. I only like it when I'm shopping for things to sell, but I hate shopping for myself. It's just, I don't like it. So I might get those 4 shirts, sweaters, whatever it is, home and try them on. And even though they are the exact same style, but different colors, exact same size, everything's the same, they fit different. And, even though it's made in a factory to certain specifications, that can happen. So just remember the buyer cannot try it on. So there's no way they're going to know if it's going to fit unless you provide those measurements. And if you're selling used clothing, the item may have shrunk in the washer, or it could be stretched out because somebody wore it a lot and it got stretched out. So it's not going to be exactly the same as it would be if it was a brand new item off the rack. So just remember, buyers cannot try on clothing when they're shopping online. And another point to remember is buyers don't want the hassle of having to return something. It's inconvenient for them too. Every single one of us is also a buyer. If you're not buying on eBay, you're probably buying somewhere else online. And do you personally like to have to return something because it didn't work out right? I know I don't, even though it's very easy with Amazon returns and the world we live in now. Returns are pretty easy, but it's still another task you have to add to your day. So buyers don't want to return it, they want it to fit right. And having those measurements is going to help achieve that. Now, here are a few tips for taking measurements if you're not doing it. It literally takes 30 to 45 seconds per item to take the measurements. What I do is tape a measuring tape or a yardstick to my desk. I have different workstations, so I do it both ways. So the measuring tape is right there. All you have to do is just hold the item up to it and get those measurements. Think about how stores that sell fabric by the yard, they have a measuring tape or yardstick on that table, and they just pull that fabric across to whatever length and cut it. So it's the same concept. You don't have to fumble around and find your measuring tape. It's right there where you sit down to list your items, and you can measure it very quickly. Like while the pictures are uploading on eBay, you can be taking the measurements. Also, if an item stretches, you want to include that in the measurements. You can look at my listings because I have been asked this question so many times over the years, I just started adding it to my listings. Does the item stretch? You can provide the unstretched and stretched measurements. So they're going to know that. They're going to know the range of how far that material is going to stretch. And you really only need it for measurements that go across, like bust or waist. You don't need it on the length because that's just going to hang the way it is. But if it's anything that has to fit horizontally, put the stretched measurement. That will help sell a lot of items and the buyer won't have to ask you. You can also create a template or format so that when you sell a similar item, all you have to do is change the measurements. Again, you can look at my listings for examples. So if I'm selling a pair of leggings, I will put waist measurement, stretched and unstretched, length, inseam, and all I have to do is do a sell similar and change those measurements along with whatever information in the listing also needs to be changed, like color and brand. But it just becomes data entry. Create a system and work from that system. It's so much more time efficient. And once you get into a routine and a rhythm of doing it, it goes really fast. And again, I'm driving this point home. You have no way of knowing how many people are clicking away from your listings because you don't have any measurements or you don't have enough of the right ones that is going to answer the questions they may have. So that's a huge unknown. I guarantee you, and I'm going to stake my reputation on this, that if you start putting measurements in those listings, you're going to sell more clothing items and you're going to get fewer questions. Okay, the third tip is to give as much information as reasonable about the item in the listing to prevent both questions and returns. Fill in those item specifics as well as you can. I agree, there are a lot of item specifics that are irrelevant for certain items, and it has become very overwhelming to sell clothing on eBay because of the extra work of completing all those item specifics. But that's what's going to get you higher in search. The more complete your listing is, the higher it's going to rank. And when you're filling in those item specifics and you have to choose a style for an article of clothing and you don't know what the style is, just go to Google and put in style guide for whatever the item is. For example, skirts. And you'll see on Google Images all these charts that show a drawing of all the different styles. So your skirt could be A-line, maxi skirt, tulip skirt, bubble skirt, mini skirt, micro mini skirt, wrap skirt, faux wrap skirt, all of that. And that's pretty overwhelming, especially if you are not a clothing expert or a fashion expert and know all these words. You can get a visual by going to Google Images and searching for style guide. This also works for any article of clothing or accessory such as hats, handbags, belts, shoes, all of that has style guides. And this is probably common sense if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, but if there are any flaws, show photos and mention them. But don't think your item won't sell because damaged, defective items sell all the time. And if you watch my videos, you'll see that in both my sales update and the Money Making Mondays videos. Make sure the condition is accurate. A lot of people like to click new without tags, and this can come back to bite you later. So I rarely use that condition. Don't ever upgrade your condition. Make sure that you say it is used, it is pre-owned, because the buyer's going to have it in their hands in a short period of time. And if they don't agree with you, that's either going to be a return or negative feedback. I see this all the time, especially on newer people who are eager to sell things quickly and don't realize that a pre-owned item should not be categorized as new without tags. It's always better to err on the side of downgrading your item rather than having the buyer have it in their hands and then they have the power to leave you negative feedback or return it, or it will affect your DSR ratings on item as described. So the bottom line is pretend you are the buyer. What would you want? What would you want to know in the listing before you buy something? Think about it from that perspective. The fourth thing you can do is describe the texture. And again, you can look at my listings for how I do this, but remember, the only thing between you and the buyer is a computer screen. They cannot touch and feel the item. And that is very important to some buyers, that tactile experience that you don't get when you're shopping online. So you'll notice, like on my cashmere sweaters, I say things like luxuriously soft, or on other types of sweaters, I'll say soft like a blanket, not itchy. Some fabrics are polyester, but they feel very silky. So I will say has a silky feel to it. Is it thin or thick? Especially on sweaters. This is a very thick material. It feels like a blanket. If something does feel kind of itchy and scratchy, you might want to say, this is a itchy wool material. You would need to wear a base layer underneath. And that way you're using these great adjectives that describe the item, and the buyer can imagine how it feels before they buy it. So describe that texture. And if you don't know what kinds of words to use, go online and look at major retailer sites, Nordstrom, Macy's, wherever you buy clothing from, and see what types of adjectives they use in the listings. And then you can just springboard off of that and use that kind of information in your listings. Okay, the fifth thing you can do is evaluate your current return policy. If you have no returns on your items, that's going to show up when the buyer is shopping and they're going to see you don't offer returns and they're going to click away. And very early on, when I started eBay, I realized that the rewards for offering a return policy far outweigh the risks. This can be hard, especially if you're new, because you're going to think everybody's going to return everything. And that's just not the way it works. If you have a no return policy at this time, I challenge you to switch that to 30-day returns and watch what happens to your sales. You may get a lot more sales, you may not, but you're not going to know until you try it. But it's also been my experience that about 80% of buyers who say they want to return something don't follow through. It's a hassle. They throw it in their car. They don't ever get around to taking it to the post office. It gets buried on their desk. It gets buried in their bedroom, wherever, and they never get around to it. And the 30-day return window closes and then they can't return it. So just because you get a return request doesn't mean it's going to happen. I've had to reprogram the way I think about returns. And when a return request comes in, I approve it. And then I think, okay, let's see if it actually shows up. And a lot of times it doesn't. So keep that in mind. Experience is a wonderful teacher. And if you're new, you don't have that experience to draw on, especially if you are new to reselling in general. You don't realize that a lot of returns just don't ever happen. And if you have no returns on your items, the eBay guarantee is going to override that anyway. So you're still going to have to end up dealing with it if the customer isn't happy, you missed a flaw on it, whatever reason. So just join the rest of us and put 30-day returns on your items and just see what happens. Go into it with a positive attitude. And a word on return policies: use the return section of the eBay sell your item form. Do not put all your return policies in the listing area, the description box, because that box is programmed to contain information about the item. If you throw in all this text about returns and what you do accept and don't accept and all of that, that's going to confuse the search engine and it can push your listing down in search. So it can come back to bite you. eBay has a specific section for your return information. So make sure you put it there, not mixed in the description box. And experience, again, most people don't read that. I know as a shopper, when I see this huge, long return policy with like 5,000 words. I don't even read it. Or I don't even buy from that person because, oh my gosh, this is too complicated. I'm not going to do all that. And I just move on to something simple. So keep it simple. You don't need all these long, drawn out return policies. The eBay guarantee is going to override that anyway. So just keep it simple. Go to my eBay store and look at my listings. You can look at how I do things. I have set that store up as a teaching tool, knowing that new people or people who need help or those who want to learn are going to go look at it. And that's perfectly fine. I don't expect you to buy anything. You can just go look at those listings, how they're set up, what I say, the exact verbiage, all of that information is there for you. I'm throwing myself to the wolves and being an example. But it's to help other people because when I started this back in 2003, there was no help. They had the eBay community boards, and when you went on there and asked a question, they ripped you to shreds. People who had been around a long time would call you all kind of names. You're stupid. Why don't you know this? And it was just really horrible. And I could not believe people would behave that way when somebody wanted to learn something. There weren't all of these blogs. There wasn't even YouTube yet. There was no help. There were some books, but they got outdated pretty quick because eBay changes all the time. So that's the whole reason behind why I do this and why I help other people, because I had a hard time in the beginning and I had to figure all this out for myself. So I thought, why don't I help other people learn? We can all be successful. There's enough out there for everybody. And, I was kind of a late comer to YouTube, and my channel is very different for those reasons because I actually want you to be successful. Everyone can make money doing this. And sometimes you just need a little help. And um, I get some comments on YouTube, which I go through every single one of them. And uh, I delete comments by trolls because I'm just not even going to acknowledge that. But people say, oh, you totally over explained that. You could have said that in 2 minutes, and this is the 30-minute video. And that's okay. That's just the way I teach. I've had as many people say, thank you for explaining that. You break it down so it's so easy. So if you don't like my style, that is totally fine. There's like a zillion other eBay YouTube channels you can watch that do shopping and hauls and all that kind of stuff that I don't do. I know I'm called like the PBS of eBay resellers or the kindergarten teacher of eBay resellers. That's okay. It helps people, and that's what motivates me to keep going to help y'all learn. Okay, number 7 is avoid frequently returned items. And the top ones here are designer handbags because people like to do the switcheroo where they send you back something that you didn't send them, or they basically rent the item and use it for 25 days and then open a return and send it back, and then they go buy another one. That is a known problem on eBay with designer handbags. Now, I do sell some handbags, but not the high end status symbol kind that people just want to wear for a little while and then return. Also, you've got formal wear. That's notorious for being returned. And this last one is like, there's no way you can prevent this, but people will buy something specifically for a photo shoot and then return it. I was in a store the other day and there were these two young girls, young 20s, talking about what they're going to buy for their family photo shoot. And they're picking up different garments and like figuring out how to tuck the tag in so it doesn't show because they're going to return it right after they wear it. So there's nothing we can do about that because with Instagram, that's all people are doing these days is taking pictures of themselves wearing different outfits. But they could be those people that never return an item. that, they get too lazy and they don't return it anyway. But your frequently returned items are going to be the high-end handbags, formal wear, uh, bridesmaid type stuff, wedding type stuff. So just keep that in mind. And if you're getting a lot of returns on those types of items, just don't sell them anymore. There's plenty of other things to choose from. Okay, and number 8 is negotiate returns. When you get a message from a buyer that says, "Hey, this has a defect on it," or um, "This has a problem I don't like," and the item is actually damaged, if they send you a picture, or even if they don't, I usually just believe them. The first thing you want to say is, "Oh, we are so sorry we missed that." Yes, you do need to apologize, even though it's probably not your fault. Just err on the side of caution there. Say, "Oh, we're so sorry we missed that. How would you like to resolve this?" And see what they say. Don't just jump into panic mode and think you have to give them their money back and a full refund and they don't have to return it. Just put the ball back in their court and see what they say. And for me, 9 times out of 10, they say, "Oh, if you could just give me $5 back, or I'll keep that and sew it up myself if you can just give me a partial refund of, $8, whatever it is." And usually their suggestion is going to be less than what you would have suggested. It's all about what they want, what's going to make them happy. Obviously, if it is a ridiculous request, then just say, "Oh, we're so sorry that happened. Yeah, just return that to us, and that's fine. We apologize." And if it's something that you think you can resell for the same amount or higher, then it's worth getting it back. But you want them to tell you what they want. Sometimes they don't want anything. They'll just say, "Oh, it's no big deal. I just wanted to let you know that you missed something." And some people, that is what floats their boat, is telling other people that they're wrong. But you just have to be professional and see what they want. If it really is a damaged item that you don't want the hassle of reselling, the objective is to get them to keep it. It's already in their possession. They've already paid for it. And you may come out ahead just doing a partial refund than getting the item back if you can't sell it again anyway. So that should be your thought process on returns is, do I even want it back? If it's a problem item and you don't want to deal with it again, then negotiate a return. Panic mode about, "Oh my gosh, what do I do? And how do I do this? And I don't want bad feedback." And just take a deep breath and think through it. These are human beings just like you, and you just need to talk to them and say, "We're sorry this happened. What can we do for you? How would you like to resolve this?" And let them tell you. And then you can negotiate further from there if it's a reasonable request, or if you want to go ahead and get the item back so that you can resell it. Okay, I hope those tips have helped you. And I am happy to be your PBS style eBay reseller educator, as well as your kindergarten eBay teacher. And I get a kick out of that because my first major in college was early childhood education. And here I am, all these decades later, being referred to as a kindergarten teacher, but I'm teaching adults, so that works. Thanks for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day on eBay. Bye.